Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What crime happened in your local area that no one really talks about? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It was noted when it happened, but fell off the radar quickly. A woman was coming home from work. She was supposed to meet her friends, a young professional, normal life, not depressed or suicidal. She was seen falling off the roof of a car garage the same exact time her car and purse were stolen. It was within a minute of each other. The police ruled it suicide and said the guy stole the stuff at the same time she jumped. The family were angry. The woman was just in contact with her friends and was excited for a night out. They were sure she was thrown or pushed. They accused the police of being lazy. No footage was ever shown of her being thrown, but the fact this happened together was suspicious. Two elderly women, both named Marion, who didn't know each other and only lived 2 miles apart, were sexually assaulted and strangled to death in their homes in 2006. The crimes took place 3 months apart and have never been solved. This took place in my hometown of Springfield, Virginia, and I never heard about it even though I was a teenager when the murders occurred. They're called the Marion murders. I grew up in a small town in Georgia. In the early 80s, my friend's father, who was a well-known lawyer in our town, stabbed his lover to death when he threatened to expose their relationship to my friend's mother and our community. He killed him, cleaned up, and then sang a solo in his church the next morning. The case was kept very quiet. Due to his reputation and friendship with the DA, he got a very light sentence. We have a lady around 40 years old in our town who is not okay in her head, lives alone and walks all day around town talking to herself but never hurts anybody. One day, 4 boys raped her on a beach in the night and left her pregnant. She gave birth. Authorities took the baby and no one was caught. She continues walking around, but now she's not even talking anymore. Principal changing her daughter's grades. Daughter was in on it. Was a big deal for a month and now no one talks about it, and said principal mingles with all the school staff even though she was fired. Classified as a terrorist attack, but there was a kid in my school who got kicked out for injuring 3 students and damaging school property who wasn't permitted near the school. I was helping out with parents' evening when he managed to sneak into the school and set off fireworks in the car park and inside the school. The next day he did it again after school. Not my town, but I have family in the area where Brooke Allensworth went missing. She disappeared in 2018 and there are no leads to this day. She left her house with mismatched shoes on that day. Her car was found abandoned in a small town about 45 minutes away from her home. It had a flat tire. She left her cigarettes in the car and just vanished. There was a girl in my area. She was walking her dog. Her dog barked at a guy. The guy got so angry that he beat the shit out of that girl. They filed complaints, but nothing happened because the mother of the guy was a judge in high court, so the police were hesitant to do any investigation. The most amazing thing is his mother goes around locally moral policing everyone, but didn't do anything about her son. A woman whose name I believe was Bambi, or something to that effect, stepped outside one morning to get the mail. She has not been seen or heard from since. Since it was so early, there was no one there to witness what happened. The case went cold and, to my knowledge, remains unsolved. This happened in the general vicinity of Binghamton, New York, either within Binghamton or somewhere nearby like Johnson City if I recall correctly. I speak with uncertainty because I've only ever heard secondhand accounts of this case, and I don't remember finding it the last time I went looking for information about it. If you know what I'm talking about though, do feel free to share any details and such. It's not one specific crime. My county is home to a right-wing terrorist organization, and it seems like law enforcement pretty much lets them do whatever they want. In a shopping center like 15 minutes away from my house, a guy walked into a Lane Bryant store and shot 6 people. One of them survived. They never caught who did it, but think it was a robbery gone wrong. This happened around 2008, and I still go to that shopping center all the time. It's terrifying that the guy is still out there, possibly in my community. In my old neighborhood, there was a homicide 2 streets down from my house. About 3 years later, there were drug lords or human traffickers that lived literally 2 houses down across the street from us. SWAT came in one day after I returned from a local water park with some friends, which was really just a river with a couple of sprinklers on a playground nearby. This was right next to an elementary school. I literally had to hide behind clothing in a closet with a gun in the dark for half an hour because of a shootout one night. This was supposed to be a nice neighborhood, nowhere near any inner city downtown area. Yeah, Never really talked about it, and I don't think the new homeowners knew when they bought the house. At least they were arrested by the time they moved in. Woman's husband had been accused of assault and had a restraining order or something, but when she was arrested, he was able to buy the house back and repair it. There were a couple of times my family members were allowed out of the neighborhood. One of our neighbors agreed to put cameras on their car and cooperate with the police department, so they were probably trying to figure out who it was. One of our dumbass neighbors, well-meaning priest, openly asked which car had the camera in the middle of the street, so that's probably how they got tipped off. I used to work in a town where an elderly couple was murdered. Police found their car on a back road, completely burnt with their bodies inside, clinging to one another. It was so heart-wrenching. Not sure of the rest of the details or how they ended up trapped in the car, but from what I read, their grandson was arrested for their murder. Something about trying to get their hands on their money, an inheritance or something. He did about 5 years, is out now, and everyone acts like he never hurt a fly. I guess his girlfriend's uncle was the judge and gave him the lightest sentence he could. In Portsmouth, England, around 2014 I think, there were attacks on women. I don't remember if anyone died, but they were stabbed. The attacker ended up being this insane guy that sent his picture to the police with a letter saying, "All women must die." It seems like it just dropped off the map the moment he was arrested. I remembered it recently and searched it up to see what happened to him and if the victim survived, but I couldn't find anything. In my town, there was a 23-year-old guy named John. It was 2013, and John wasn't very well. He was unemployed, depressed, and had been sent out on a mandatory work experience course by the job center. One day, John took a cocktail of painkillers, cannabis, whiskey, LSD, and ecstasy and attempted to drown himself in a river. John was retrieved from the river, treated, and placed into temporary psychiatric hold, and then released shortly after, having been deemed low risk. His mother immediately came to collect him and return him home, and his younger sister, who'd been attending university, returned home briefly to help care for him, and not much was heard from him following. John was later found walking down a beach completely nude, with feces-covered toilet paper in his mouth and trying to insert a pipe into his anus. When police and paramedics were called, they assumed he was on drugs, asking him, "John, have you taken anything?" John had reportedly replied, "Lives." At home, they found the bodies of his mother, his sister, and his dog. John had taken an axe and buried it into his mother's skull and the family dog. He was barking incessantly. He turned the axe on too. When his sister discovered what he'd done and begun screaming, he turned on and went after her. It was later uncovered that following her death, John had raped his sister's corpse. 2 days before the murder, John had pleaded with mental health officials that they formally commit him because he knew he was on a downward spiral that would eventually culminate in him committing something terrible. The Long Island serial killer, also referred to as Lisk, the Gilgo Beach Killer, or the Craigslist Ripper, is an unidentified suspected serial killer who is believed to have murdered between 10 and 16 people over a period of nearly 20 years, and to have disposed of their dismembered bodies in areas of the South Shore of Long Island, New York. Most of the known victims were prostitutes who advertised on Craigslist. The victims' remains were found over a period of months in 2010 and 2011, after the disappearance of Shannon Gilbert resulted in a police search of the area along the Ocean Parkway near the remote beach towns of Gilgo and Oak Beach in Suffolk County. The remains of 4 victims, the Gilgo 4, were found within a quarter of a mile of each other near Gilgo Beach in December 2010. 6 more sets of remains were found in March and April 2011 in Suffolk County and Nassau County. Police believe the latter sets of remains predate the 4 bodies found in December 2010. I live on Long Island and they never talk about it anymore. They think the police were involved.